Maryam's like, how long do these calls go on for? We're like 10 minutes in and I haven't even, so I'm going to just, let's just be like
No,
everybody
this
else.
is fun getting to know everyone. So
Actually, you
Who
know,
wants to have it
we never do this because you've never joined us before and we want to know you. We're all going to give you one sentence about what we do for a living, okay? I'll go
that's
first.
great. Fantastic.
I am Joe, I'm your host. Craig.
I'm Craig. I do value assessments for healthcare organizations.
Rick.
Oh
Stockton.
gosh, I'm way up on top there. Oh, I'm Rick, and I help you make a lot of products if you only know how to make one.
That was confusing. As your marketing guy, go again. What do you do?
I was trying to remember that word.
Let's tell us what you do, Rick.
Oh, I design medical devices for manufacturability.
Good job. James Carr.
With a software company, we help teams write exceptionally clear requirements in less time.
Nice. Bam Bot.
I'm CEO of a company working on developing a new, a better breast cancer detection device.
For Orquez.
Yeah, I'm Jose. I run a product development firm that specializes in connected wireless medical devices.
Andrea Davis.
I find the patents that threaten your idea to come to market.
You're the patent detective. Is not.
I help companies bring new ideas to market through the FDA and the EU, and then help them keep them there through commercialization with our quality systems.
Andre Domino.
I'm Andre Domino. I'm CEO of ADM Tronics. We design, develop, and manufacture electronic medical devices. We're FDA registered manufacturer, ISO 13485.
Eddie.
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm CEO of a medical device company called Ingenian, and we're developing a urinary catheter for male retention is the first one, and then we'll be doing more later.
Cool.
Josue.
I'm Josue Garza. Help companies get market access in Mexico for medical devices.
Yo, Shep.
Daniel Shepard, and I help companies, medical device companies, with acquisition and licensing.
Maya, you need to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Maya. I work for Powermedic Lasers, and we produce and develop laser therapy equipment.
Jan.
And I'm Jan Gates. I am a packaging engineer. I like to specialize in medical devices, so I try and optimize and make it good for manufacturing, shipping, make sure they don't break. So I have fun doing that. And develop processes so you can do it. Sorry, too many sentences there.
David.
Dave Hampton in the UK. I work on diagnostic software for medical devices, and I make a urinary catheter that's not EDS.
Did we know this, that you guys are working on either ends of the...
We talk, yeah. We're good friends.
Yeah, we've talked. Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys interrupted because I was about to be inappropriate and Beth would have been in the next room being like, Joey. It's really old after a while. And for the tens of thousands of people who are just attending, if you don't join premium, you don't get any
bingo.
So that's, you know. Okay. I liked that. That was fun. We should do that more often.
That was great. Nice to meet you, everyone.
Thanks, Maryam.
Now you're all going to be put into the attendee. You don't have to share a screen. You can just talk with us. You can share a screen. We're just friends hanging out, having coffee.
I'm just gonna talk. Yeah. So, hi everyone. As mentioned before, I'm Maryam Ziaei, and I'm co-founder and CEO of iSono Health. And the story of I'm an engineer by training. So, when I was doing my PhD at Stanford, that's how the story of our company started. I had a close friend of mine who got diagnosed with breast cancer that was completely missed. She went through chemo. And then a few years later, after we graduated, the cancer came back and it was missed again. This time she wasn't so lucky, and unfortunately already it had metastasized everywhere. So that was, and at the time I was doing a postdoc and I was working in ultrasound, and and I was at the same time outraged. How can breast cancer be missed twice, for the same woman? And after losing my friend, I said there got to be a better way for women to do breast cancer screening, more affordable, more accessible, more accurate, more consistent. So, and as I mentioned, I was working ultrasound and reading a lot of articles, and I realized that it's really good at picking up early stage masses and really small things, but it's really bad at identifying what's what and being more specific. And I was talking to my, co-founder, and she was working on the image processing side of things. I was working on the sensor side of things. My background was in MEMS and transducers. And she said, yeah, there's a lot of the things you can do, but it's operator dependent. So you can improve the image and all that, but it's still very operator dependent. So we sat together, and her mom is a breast radiologist. So we talked to her. She said, yeah, it also takes a long time to do a breast ultrasound. That's why a lot of us don't do it for every woman who has dense breasts. So that's how the idea of the company started. It was literally late 2015, and we said, let's look into it. We looked into it, and we said, hey, let's apply to Y Combinator. And it was kind of a ridiculous idea at the time because we had nothing. To our surprise, we got an invitation to an interview, and we literally had just an idea on a napkin. We taped some eval boards to a bra, and we took that to our interview, literally. So that's how ridiculous it was at a time. And it was just an idea. All we had done is we went out and interviewed about 150. So we did that, and we had interviewed 150 physicians and women who had high risk of breast cancer or family history of breast cancer. And they all said, yeah, of course, we need a better solution. So that's all we had at the time. So the rest is kind of history. We got into Y Combinator, and then we started developing a prototype. We raised some money from angels and family and friends, and we hired an engineer too, and we started developing our first prototype. We went outside the US and we collected some clinical data, and we realized, okay, we need to improve our image quality. Then we developed our second and third versions of prototypes. And once we got acceptable image quality, we went outside again, collected some data, and once we got there, we raised some venture round and hired a team. So right now we have about 10 people full time, another 10 to 15 people part time. And we right now where we are is we are about to submit our FDA. So we've frozen our design, and I can go back and talk a little bit about what we're doing actually. We're developing this platform that combines automated ultrasound with machine learning. So we have both hardware and software, and that's been an interesting challenge. So we have and I was gonna I can share a screen if you want.
Yeah, I did that in the meanwhile, but you go ahead and your screen.
Yeah, I think this is I didn't want to go through slides, but this is.
Yeah, no, just to kind of give us a visual. Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a wearable that looks like a bra, and as you can see here, we have a scanner that attaches on top, and then we have machine learning and AI, and essentially this part is disposable. So it takes 1 minute to do the entire scan, and the way it works is that I actually have the scan. I can go get it. We rotate mechanically the transducer array over with a certain pattern over the surface of the breast. It attaches to a wearable to keep the breast in the field of view and also for repeatability. So one of the major things is that the image acquisition is hands-free and is automatic in a portable fashion. So that allows our system to be used in many more settings that was not possible before without an ultrasound tech or radiologist, such as point of care settings like OBGYN's office or your GP's office, in a pharmacy, and eventually at home. So that's where we're going eventually. The goal is to bring this to home. Our first indication that we're going after first is for point of care, and then we will work on expanding, getting the clinical data required for at home. So that's where we are. On the machine learning side, what we are doing right now is we are developing algorithms that do detection and triage of the images, and so obviously as classification, segmentation. And right now, in the first indication, radiologist does the final diagnosis. And hopefully we'll expand the indications soon in the future to actual diagnosis, which would be a CADX with more data when we want to take this home. So again, with the AI as well, we're doing this in 2 different steps.
I invited Shabir and Jose on now. Just again, this is supposed to be very interactive. Shabir is spending his life in almost a parallel place, and you start talking about at home and AI and the like, and I gotta get Jose on. But Shabir, first, what did you hear and what did you think?
I thought it's a great idea. The fact that, you kind of democratize breast cancer detection. You don't have to, especially if COVID has taught us anything, it's so hard to get an appointment and go and, even before COVID happened, getting a radiologist and getting these ultrasound technician appointments literally would take forever. So this is a great idea. My question, I guess I have a couple of thoughts or questions, if you will. One is this meant for women who have like a history of breast cancer, or somebody who's previously been diagnosed or has some suspicion? Is it like a follow-up thing, or is it, I guess I'll ask you, what is the indication for?
Yeah. So currently the indication will be for diagnostic imaging, which, as you said, it will be either for women who have dense breast or women who have in a clinic, women who have a finding, because we don't have a screening indication yet. But down the line, as we expand our indication, the goal is actually for this to be almost the first line of defense, or pre-screening or monitoring. We're going to go after monitoring indication. And that means that, you have, let's say, you're high risk or you have dense breast, we send this device to you. Somebody asked, and I'm going to answer this question. So yes, the wearable, the plastic bra and all that is disposable, and the scanner is obviously a durable good. And what you can, we can send the scanner to you, every few months, depending on your risk factor, depending on how high risk you are, and you can do the scan, you can send it back. That's kind of the model we have in mind. So down the line, kind of pre-screening or, first line of defense, warning and flagging system. And then, but initially when we're in a point of care clinic, the workflow, the way it will work is that if you are a woman in your 40s and above, especially at least in California, you'll get a mammogram first. And if there's a finding, or if you have dense breast, then you will get an ultrasound. If you're a woman in your 30s and you have dense breast, similar. If you have a high risk and you're younger, then you can just get an ultrasound. So depending on your specific situation, you may get an ultrasound first, or you may be sent for a mammogram and then get an ultrasound. So it really depends on your specific situation. Down the line, we hope this is, as I mentioned, something that you can either do at home, or you walk into your local pharmacy, or even workplace clinic. I know with COVID, it's we're not going to work, but but imagine this sitting at your workplace inside a room, and you can just walk in and easily do that and work. So yeah, that's what we have in mind. And as you mentioned with COVID, I wanted to mention this, it's been a little bit disastrous, because every year there's about 250,000 cases of breast cancer that are diagnosed in US. This past year with COVID, and it's continuing, there was a 90+ % decline in breast cancer screening.
Wow.
And I was talking to some of our PIs, and one of them mentioned this, and it kind of it's been stuck in my mind for weeks. It said there are over 200,000 women, close to 240,000 women walking around with breast cancer right now, because statistically, right? Every year, that's the number. You know, in US, they haven't 90% of them haven't come in, 95% actually. So, you know, those numbers are actually quite conservative. And you know, this was a meeting we had with our PIs at UCSD and Baylor, and they're like, I mean, it just blew my mind, right? I was like, wow, there's about, you know, 250,000, you know, women that are walking around just in US right now with breast cancer that is growing, you know, and has gone undetected. So,
Shabir, you offered a similar statistic. You had a different angle to it when you spoke. I think it was 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, so again, I'm kind of feeding off of what Maryam just said. You know, it's taken us a long time. It's taken us 10, 15 years to bring the mortality from due to breast cancer down to about 40,000.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. I mean, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
40,000 women die of breast cancer every year in the United States. Worldwide, it's 500,000. They're projecting that number, we took 10, 15 years to bring it down. You know, very painful, expensive, lots of effort, companies like yours, you know, technology, all of that has together helped in bringing it down. And it's just been stubborn. It's not going down below that. And next year, they're saying it'll go up to 50,000, just because COVID has prevented women. So it's just boom, just gone up. All of that effort, all of that work, all of that blood, sweat, tear, money, everything is just wiped out.
I have to say, it's a sad commentary that every day or every couple of days, you know, we turn on the news and we say we hit a new grim milestone, which is usually a factor of 25,000 or another 50,000. It's 4,000 a day. So, you know, give us until next week, it's 425. Give us till Valentine's Day, it's 450. And it's like, how many people die of breast cancer? I'm not minimizing like you, but it's like only 50,000. That's, you know, what? That's a few weeks of COVID. So that's, you know, let's figure out COVID.
Well, yes, and COVID has basically thrown all of our thinking in a different, you know, in a different dimension.
Yeah.
But you know, this is not normal. Thousands of people dying every day is not a normal thing.
No. Jose, I definitely want to.
If it's not essential, if it's not life-threatening, you should stay away from the hospitals. And I personally have stayed away and have postponed. Yeah, so I personally identify with that.
Maryam,
no, I know a lot of women do. Yeah, most women do, and you know, correctly, we have stayed away. But you know, there's ramifications with not just breast cancer, with a lot of cancers that have missed. Yeah.
If you could send a kit to all the women in the group, these are my customers, and if they all, I mean, not to be long life, Andrea, but I rely on your presentation revenue.
No, I think that's a
valid point. Actually,
the woman.
That I need to be concerned about men dying as well, because will there be a version for men? 1% of men also get breast cancer.
Yes. And there was a question also about large breasted women.
That's from Jan. Yes, I meant to add her.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read the question. And
yeah, of course. So we do have different sizes of the bra. So the bra, and I put the bra in quotation because when I say the bra, people think you have to wear it for an extended period of time. You just wear it for, you know, 2 to 3 minutes maximum per each time you do the scan. So it's not really a wearable in that sense, but again, it's something you put on. So we have 4 different sizes. So yes, we have small, medium, large, and extra large. So we can accommodate up to women who have 38 double E breasts, which is about 85% of women. And then we will work on one that is larger, but I think we can cover majority of women who even have large breasts. In terms of the other question was about men, yes, so the device will work for men. We actually have tested it on women. I was using my husband as a guinea pig when I was doing usability studies. So yes, it does work. You know, we can use the smaller size for, you know, for men. And with some men specifically, the risk is higher than actually 1 in 1,000. So we were working with, and we'll continue actually after COVID with New York Cancer Alliance, and they were working with 9/11 firefighters, and they have been developing a lot of breast cancer in men. because of the exposure. We're working with VA for female veterans, but an idea came up with one of our subject matter experts, one of the radiologists we work with there, and they said, veterans in general, even the men, have higher risk because of the exposure, environmental exposure. So there are some men that have higher risk, and that's 1 in 1,000, and more than 1 in 1,000 specific population. But yes, it does work for men, but as I said, it's not typically as we, our first device, we won't be doing any tests on men yet, but down the line, I think, once we have a little bit more bandwidth, we'll definitely, focus on men too. But it works on men just as well as women. It's just a matter of having to do the test on men as well for the, for the FDA indication. But other than that, yeah, it works just as well. So.
Jan, you also asked about ducts.
Sorry, trying to get off mute. Yeah, because you had a hole there in the center, are you still capable of checking the duct cancers that a lot of women get? I wasn't.
Yeah, so I think that's just it's a little bit always misleading. So the way it works is that we move the transducer array over the surface of the breast, once over the outer circle, and then one over the inner circle over the breast. So we don't miss anywhere on the surface of the breast. In fact, because the way you put on the bra and then you lie back, and then there's straps, and we tighten the straps, so the bra sits actually a little bit higher towards your head than a typical, like a everyday bra would sit, and because of that, we can also cover axillary tail. Something that we can't do right now is the axilla, which is the underarm. But one of the things that is kind of in the works is that if you look at the scanner, there's two parts. There's a part that all the sensor electronics are in that, and it's inside of a larger holder. So that smaller part comes out. So you could potentially hold that under the arm and scan under the arm still. It won't stop you. It works just like ultrasound probe, but in order to do automatically without the need for a trained person, then we need to have a wearable holder for that. So we'll work on that next.
Andrea, you had two questions about,
yeah,
Michelle. Andrea, you had two questions about the function and form.
Yeah, I think Maryam answered the first one, that the actual device is something that is reusable, and then the holster, the bra itself, is a disposable item. And then it was interesting. I had my own ultrasound yesterday, and as always, I always try to find out what technology they use, just because I work with it so much, and it's interesting to know. And the technician who has done this for 26 years, and I was specifically asking about AI, if they use like imaging techniques, and she said, you're looking at it as in like she's the AI. And I was so surprised, because I know there's been IP out there for decades now about automatically or training a system to detect cancerous tissue, and both in breast and non-breast. And I think this seems to be a hurdle where this particular office was within Scripps, so it's an enormous hospital network, and while I understand that means that there's lots of hoops to jump through, but I would think that such a big network would be more willing to invest in some kind of automated system, and I'm surprised that they haven't. And this is both for Shabir and for you, Maryam. Like, there seems to be something where hospitals are not going for technologies, and what can you do to get past that?
Yeah, so one of them is, so you're actually, I wanted to add a comment and then answer your question. So you're completely correct. When it comes to breast cancer, the way, an ultrasound tech does the imaging, they're doing the detection actually. The radiologist is looking at what they captured. So a lot of times radiologists ask us is that, are you replacing the radiologist? And our answer is no, we're actually replacing the tech right now. And the reason is because what we do is we automatically capture the entire breast without, the need for tech. And then we also, our machine learning comes out, because from each breast right now, we're capturing over 500 images, over 1,000 images overall. So compare that to a few images that they capture. So we go over and capture everything instead of saying, because right now the tech goes in and says, this area is interesting and this area is interesting. And if the tech misses it, or if they decide it's not anything, it's missed. The radiologist will never look at it actually. What we do is that we capture everything very fast, obviously, and then we go say, okay, based on our algorithm, out of these 1,000 slides, 1,000 images we captured, these 20 or 30 or 40 have something interesting in them. The rest of them are still available for the radiologist to look at if they want to. But we say, look, with 95% accuracy, these are the slices that have something in them. So you're 100% correct that, that's the tech is doing the actual detection. So, and depending how good the tech is, you could get specificities and sensitivities as low as 30% or as high as 70%, depending where you are and how good and experienced that tech is. Responding to your automated, one of the things so there are automated breast ultrasounds out there that cost $300,000 and they're very expensive, and they're the size of my living room. But one of the things that they have been they've been limiting has actually been the lack of availability of machine learning algorithms for we were talking to Sloan Kettering, and obviously for them cost is not an issue. They had an automated breast ultrasound and they said we don't use it as much, and we said why, and they said because it creates like 1,500 plus images and a radiologist simply don't have the time to review over 1,000 images. So when it comes to automated breast ultrasound, because that detection doesn't happen in the brain of the tech anymore, you're capturing everything, you do need a sorting or triage system to essentially improve the workflow. Another challenge has been for places that are not, a cost is an issue, you're still getting the same reimbursement, and if the machine costs $200,000, $300,000, that's quite expensive capital. So those are some of the two factors, and we're trying to solve those factors by adding machine learning, and then obviously the cost of hardware for us is not an issue. So those are some of the things that we can think of. There are some other biases and things like that. Like we have heard, some clinics we talk to say, oh no, our ultrasound techs are the best and things like that. Obviously, those biases exist, but a majority of places, when you demonstrate the value, then they're open to it. So
I'm curious, Andrea, did you hear anything patent detector alarm in there?
No, I just know that I've done several projects with not necessarily, nothing like yours in the way it functions, but just using AI and machine learning to detect cancerous tissue, and then they would, so that somebody wouldn't have to look through the 1,000 images, but they would be taken to the specific.
So there are arguments, Andrea, on both sides of the question that you've asked. Why hasn't AI been adopted in this space? Well, on the one hand, there is this huge need. Radiologists complain that after a day's work, they come out looking like zombies because that's all they've been doing, looking at thousands of images. And so they need help. So that's on the one side. But on the other side, the resistance is, are you going to replace me? Are you going to replace the technologist? And there are some real concerns there because yes, there is AI in their brain. They are trained. There's this real time.
That's ironic.
Yes. Well, it's interesting.
Real time. Real time.
It's interesting what he's saying because there are parallels, I'm sure, in every industry today with AI, right, and replacing people. And within my industry, people are jumping on the AI, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't need them. We don't need the humans." Whereas in other industries, it's the opposite, where they're like, "No, we want to keep our humans. It doesn't matter what AI is doing."
I would be interested if, as you do your patent detection and when it comes to AI, that's like, I can't even imagine how you would look for patent protection for smart thinking online stuff.
Oh, it's extra hard because the U.S. Does not allow software patents.
Right.
So it's really hard both to get IP. So if you're going for it, make sure you find a patent attorney who has experience with software patents. But then it's also hard to find the IP. So on my end, to find who are the competitors and what other people have done, it's hard to do that.
Find time for me to ask my patient friend, Jose Boorquez, or as he's more formally known in legal circles, Jose Boorquez.
Just one vocal. No, I think, earlier we talked about kind of the dark side of COVID, and a lot of patients not being protected. And I experienced some of that personally. My dad ended up getting colon cancer in the midst of COVID, and it was, was diagnosed a bit late, fortunately early enough, but it could have happened sooner. But I think the silver lining around COVID is that, technology like this, which is clearly the future, right? And in particular, bringing the technology to the home, I think in so many instances is the future. COVID has sort of magnified the importance of that. And I think for decades, the biggest hurdle has been reimbursement and to some extent, some of the regulatory challenges, but more reimbursement. And now all of a sudden, the argument is so powerful that people are just having to go, okay, we can't just let reimbursement get in the way of this. So that's just one thing. I think, I'm sure you didn't start that company planning a global pandemic that would put you in a great position, but so as fortune had it. The other piece of this that I'd say is, particularly with a lot of diagnostics, you're always going to miss some if you only measure a small number of people. So I think in the reimbursement space also, there's always the concern by the payers of having too many people go through screening. And I think you were sort of touching on this earlier, Maryam. Yeah. And then you get false positives, and then you add costs to the system because you've got a lot more people coming in. But I think that's a little bit where AI comes into play, where it's like, okay, we're not going to replace physicians, but we're going to make it so that the AI can, take 1 million people and bring that down to the 30,000 people that they would normally see in a year, or whatever. So just really narrow it down, and then you kind of got a second tier of human interaction that, goes through a second level of parsing out the false positives and false negatives. But you're starting, you're able to catch more of the cases that wouldn't be caught otherwise. So I think the bringing it to the home is, I'm hoping that, the overall system allows for that to happen with this diagnostic and with many others, because then I think that maybe that's what's going to bring that 40,000 down to, 0, right? Is being able to catch more and more of those cases earlier. So I think it's a really cool technology.
Yeah, you're really right. So with COVID, and I mean, FDA has been moving towards more openness towards at home. So right before COVID, actually, I was in a panel at FDA. We flew to DC. I don't know. The panel was at NIH actually. And they were talking about AI-guided ultrasound at home, which was amazing by itself. So FDA has been moving towards that, has been very open to that. They had brought patients, give testimonies, and they had people from various ultrasound companies in there, and we're all discussing this. So that was quite amazing. And but still and then COVID happened, and all of a sudden at home and remote monitoring and reimbursement, there were all these new codes, and there are a few people who are asking before, why do you need to do this at home? And none of those are asking that anymore. So you're completely on point, Jose. So that's very, very true. And we're hoping that, with this, the need is very obvious. And I want to answer one question. It says, AI, please discuss the device AI demographic consideration software. Where was the demographic information taken about? So for our machine learning, obviously, we have a training set and we have validation set. So our training set, we've gotten from all over. We have a data set 8.666, which is from US. We have data from, we have some data from Asia. We have some data from Middle East. We have some data. So we have a diverse data set for training. It can be more diverse, of course, and the data from US was a little bit skewed. It should be more diverse, but as we go on, we'll add more diverse data set. And our validation data set is from US. That's because what we have to do for now. But our training data set is from all over, kind of from some of our clinical partners in US and abroad as well. So, and yes, as we move forward, we will add the more diversity we'll add to the data, the better it will be, obviously. So that's for sure.
So my penchant for wanting to bring my buddies together. Have you heard her say anything that you thought, oh, I could help with that?
Well, I mean, this is kind of right in our wheelhouse, right? This is the stuff that we specialize in. But just to build on that question, It's one of the things that I love about products that end up in the home and just drive a lot more volume, and especially when they're cloud connected, right? So all of the data is going to the cloud. Like I've got kind of this vision of, I worked in clinical trials in the past, and doing a clinical trial with 100 patients can cost millions of dollars. When you're sending a device to the home to hundreds of thousands of people, that data is just naturally captured. And so the data sets that are being generated now by devices that are cloud connected is just like so many orders of magnitude greater than what was being collected in clinical trials, that machine learning algorithms are just, it's like it's a godsend for that, right? It's just a trove of, it's precisely what you need. And then you can slice and dice demographics so that you start designing the algorithms not just to be more robust throughout demographics, but also even to be specific to the demographics, right? So if you build a data set for women in their 50s who are African American, and you've got so much data that you can build a robust system just on that data set. And if you've got a patient who's African American in her 50s, you can use a different algorithm for that than kind of a generic broad one. So it's just another one of those awesome benefits of making these devices cloud connected and just much more ubiquitous, that you're going to just capture so much of that data. I do have another question at some point, but
did you guys connect on LinkedIn yet?
No,
yes.
but I will. We should. Yes.
Jan, you got something you wanted to add real quick? Jan?
Oh, yeah, the sister study. Have you contacted them to get some volunteers or information that might be useful? I don't know if you've heard of the sister study or not.
I have not, and that's great information. So I will.
They recruited several thousand women whose sisters had breast cancer, and they've been following them for over 20 years now.
That's fantastic. We're collecting data right now, so that's really great. I will contact them for sure.
This is a fitting time for me to bring Rick back on. Rick, you wanted to just gush. You want to come off mute first.
Yeah, well, I wanted to say something on your equipment.
Richard, you want to come off mute first.
Yeah, can I say something on the equipment you're developing? Hopefully you have a packaging person there that can help you with the shock and vibration so it doesn't break.
Yes, so I was, we just actually, I'm a little anecdote. We went through a whole design of our packaging, and it will be, we're done at least with the first version of our packaging, and they'll be shipped. But we will be doing all the tests. We did some preliminary tests and it looks good, but we'll be doing all the packaging tests for FDA before we submit our package. So we'll definitely keep you in the loop, Jan. Thank you so much.
Let me be more emphatic. Don't just keep Jan in the loop. Call her after this call.
Definitely. So.
Seriously. Rick, you wanted to gush.
No, just real fast. As I explained before, my family, I'm the only guy in my family. So, and I've had a sister who, everything you can imagine was done to save her life with breast cancer. And I mean, everything they did, and it worked, just barely. So early detection, oh my gosh. And she did all the right things. She went in for all the right checks. She just couldn't get it diagnosed until it was practically too late. And then all the doctors thought she wouldn't make it. So early diagnosis, convenient diagnosis, at-home diagnosis.
Rick?
This is great.
Is she with us today?
She is. 10 years ago, or is it 15? I mean, she's a survivor after you get past 5 years.
Yeah,
but
that's fantastic.
But it's, so, and it's really good. I just talked with her for an hour yesterday, and it's great to be able to do that. So I'd like to see that done for a whole lot more people who aren't quite as lucky as she was.
We're not supposed to cry on medical devices who calls Rick.
Yeah, it's just great. I'm not crying.
Rules here.
But I think it's wonderful what you're doing. And as a man with a family full of women, I love this. And I'm going to take these notes, copy them, send them to my girls and say, keep an eye out, ask about stuff like this for when these things become available for you, because it's going to mean much more likely, you'll get checked out.
Is Maryam, are heavier men more likely to have breast cancer issues?
It's
Rick.
possible, because one of the, I haven't seen the study in men, but in women, one of the risk factors that lead to high risk of breast cancer is obesity. So it's quite possible. As I said, I haven't seen the study, so I can't say from a scientific perspective, but I'm guessing that's true because it's true in women that women with higher fat percentage, body fat percentage, definitely are at high risk of breast cancer.
I'm going to go further. I'm going to make myself look like a stupid child, but that's here I am, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thinking that a thin man doesn't really have much mass here, but a heavy man could develop something more akin
Yeah,
to.
so there's part of it is genetic, Joe. So there a lot of there's also this misconception that if only if your mother or if your sister had breast cancer, you will get breast cancer. You can get your breast cancer through your dad. So I've talked to personally many people who their dad was a carrier and they got breast cancer through that. And so men can get breast cancer obviously, and not being overweight or being skinny, as you said, necessarily doesn't mean you won't get breast cancer. Same thing with women, because part of it is genetic, but only about 25% is due to either genetics or family history. Unfortunately, there's still many women. That's the part that is we need to work on awareness and say, oh, we don't have breast cancer in my family. But yeah, that's only 25%. That's much higher risk. Your risk is, about 50, 60% higher. But if you don't have family history of breast cancer, that absolutely does not mean that you will not get breast cancer. That's why we do, screening on a large scale, because that's just not true. So, so for men, it's very similar. It's just that the ratios are much, much lower than women, instead of 1 in 8 or 1 in 6, depending on your race and all that, it's 1 in 1,000. But for women who are not exposed to excessive radiation. And I mentioned that because there was a comment about radioactivity, and that is true that first responders, some surgeons, police officers, firefighters, those people are at higher risk of breast cancer. Those men and women are both at high risk of breast cancer. So the 1 in 1,000 is kind of general population.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to share that breast cancer is the #1 cause of death in Mexico for women. And there've been quite a few initiatives from startups developing products like the one that you have in Mexico. And they partnered with foundations that specialize in breast cancer. So that's how they get all of their data from. And it's been great. There's like very good reputable foundations, and they welcome these initiatives to try to detect breast cancer. And it's a win-win for the foundation and for the product itself.
Yeah, definitely. Before COVID this year, we were planning, to be honest, partnering with some foundations to have, like add breast cancer, to go to breast cancer walks and have tents that women can walk in and, collect data and things like that. We are still talking to some foundations, but because of COVID, it's very difficult right now to collect data that way. But definitely, yeah, it's something that I mentioned. We're talking to New York Cancer Society, but there's some local foundations we talk to. If you know some in Mexico, yeah, we'd love to talk to you as well. We're talking to some foundations in Puerto Rico, so we're definitely open. Yeah, if you have connections that way, definitely let me know. Would love to, as we are right now starting to collect data, and it will become easier. Then we're talking to some foundations in India, the Tata Trust in India. So definitely something that absolutely right is the easiest and best way to collect data in a low-cost manner. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll send you some.
On the data collection side, just tied to that, have you guys started looking at and doing virtual clinical trials? Just one of our clients is also in women's health, but more in pelvic floor health. And COVID forced them to do more of a virtual clinical trial. And it's been like a wild success. I mean, whereas they would have recruited over the course of 6 months, the number of patients that they wanted for, they ended up recruiting them in about 3 or 4 weeks. And, that has the benefit that this is a device that gets sent to the home. But even, it forced us as a team to think through the onboarding process and like how to make it, very easy for the patients to do it at home and get guidance and the infrastructure. But it's been really, really exceptional. So I'm just curious if that's something you guys are doing as well.
We're not, but we definitely thought about it for sure. So it's something that we're thinking about, and there are some challenges, as you mentioned. So, but yeah, it's definitely something that we mentioned. We even thought about the idea of, like having a mobile, a van that goes to neighborhoods, and women can come in and, get their scan, or having a nurse that brings it to you. Because one of the things we want to do, we obviously want to, monitor how it works and things like that. And there's possible to do it virtually, but there's kind of hybrid ways to do as well. So we've thought about that. And then right now we're collecting our, one of the things that happened to be kind of in our favor, we're working with breast surgeons a lot and to collect clinical data, and that's been not as bad as the radiology population or screening population in terms of clinical, because if for some reason you feel a lump, or if you are breast cancer patients, and you're referred to breast surgery, you're not going to postpone that, right? You're not going to say, oh no, because of COVID, I'm not going to go in. So the number of the patients has been slow, quite slow, but it's not like pre-COVID, but at least it's moving. With our radiology partners, is a lot of them, they don't have as many women coming in for screening. So, but it's moving, but it's kind of drip, drip, drip. So we've definitely thought about the idea of bringing it to home, or having little pop-up locations that women can go to in their neighborhood. So yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right? So to get that data that you need, and virtual is, we got to think about it. So I'll connect with you to see insights for pointers and how to run virtual clinical trials for sure. And we don't know how long this is going to go on, so hopefully not as long, but yeah, we've got to do what we've got to do to collect the data. So
Maryam, I see that you guys have gotten funding from the National Science Foundation on your website. Have you gotten any from the National Institutes of Health?
No, we are applying to NIH this year. So we got an NSF, both phase 1 and phase 2. So now, as we're ready to collect more clinical data, I think NIH is more appropriate.
That would be, yeah, I was going to suggest that. Yeah.
Yeah. So NSF loves to fund hardware, right? So,
yeah.
And we got very lucky. We got phase 1, phase 2, continuing to get grants from them, and we've had some other grants as well. But we've been majority VC funded. But definitely we're applying to NIH because we're getting ready to collect large scale clinical data, and I think they like that. So especially the at-home angle, we think they will like. So
Jose, I know you need to jump off, so give us a wave and I'll see you. And if I haven't already, I'll put you in direct touch with her. Andrea, you had something?
And I'm going to put my email, everyone, in the chat here. And if I can send it to everyone, oh, I can't send it to everyone. I can actually, hold on. So this is my email. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, but I will get connected with you guys individually through Joe and follow up, but in case you need to reach me. So.
It's working, ladies and gentlemen, it's working.
Yeah, I was wondering, I'm sure wearing it and putting the device on properly is crucial for detection. Does the device itself, is it able to assess whether it's placed correctly on the breast? Does it have a built-in functionality?
Regrettably, my friend Shannon couldn't make today's call, and she's my go-to for human factors engineering. So if you're not completely zipped up with that, that's the next person I would think.
Yeah, I would love to connect actually, Joe. So we do have, Andrea, we do have sensors. So we have 3 different types of sensors. So one of the things, and I didn't go into too much detail, so we have the bra, you put the scanner on and you fill it with water because ultrasound cannot work in air, right? So you need a coupling medium. And then we have a drain bag that is attached to the side of the bra. So so we do have multiple sensors. One of them is a position sensor, which is an initial sensor. We have a 90-degree freedom IMU, and then we do have a water level sensor. So to make sure you filled it up with water, essentially it means that the ultrasound transducer is submerged in water. And then the other one is, like kind of connectivity. Is it connected correctly, and is it having enough battery and things like that? So so yeah, we do have multiple sensors on there, and one of the things that is really important to us is the ability to be able to track changes over time and repeatability, and for us to be able to register images to get over time to each other, we need to know at what angle, position, all that is taken. Even though the woman is lying back on their back, and then the bra is kind of fixated, still you could have slight angle changes, right? it's impossible to be at the same exact angle. So the nice thing about having those sensors is that you know what is the slight different angle that this was captured at, and you can correct and calibrate for that in the software. So we do have that, and then we're doing usability human factor studies right now, because we have to show that the image quality and capture is the same between different operators. So you're bringing in February and beyond, medical assistants and nurse assistants and those type of people that will be the operators, and have them do the scan and go through the essentially go to the steps in the IFU and follow that, and then we monitor and make record that, and then hopefully we'll make any changes that's necessary. So
another team member
Tracking it over time, that's amazing, and that's something I think that also has an enormous potential, because something might not look that threatening, but compared to what that breast looked like a year or two ago, that might actually be a sign of something that's about to happen.
yeah, and there's right now with a handheld ultrasound, there's no way you can do that, because it really depends on the angle and pressure and how you hold the probe and all that. So one of our missions is, monitor, and as I said, when I talk about breast health monitoring, and because we want to be able to track changes, have a baseline and see how things are changing over time. And again, I didn't go into too many details, but beyond just looking at a 2D ultrasound image, we look at the 3D high frequency data from ultrasound. And that means you can look at not just the image and its, how it looks in the image, but you can look at its functional tissue properties, and you can track that. So sometimes, there's a lesion or a cyst or something that it looks the same, in ultrasound, but there's more vascularity around it, or, other things that change on a microstructural level. And those changes typically have indications related to, a malignancy. So that's really, really exciting. It's for our first indication that's not included. That's kind of on the forefront of research, and we're working with some clinical partners to collect data and show that we can do that. It's been shown in the literature for breast and prostate and other other organs, small body parts before, but we got to prove that our device can do that. So we're not claiming that yet, but it's something that we can do, and it's quite exciting. So
yeah, very exciting.
Other team members that were not able to join today are Rio and Walt, and at Bowler Systems, they specialize exclusively in wearable sensors. So maybe another introduction we need to make for you.
yeah, definitely, absolutely.
I know all the people. Shabir, did you have anything more that you wanted to add, question, other angle, or we'll begin to wrap? And Maryam, of course, I'll have some questions for you too.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
You're welcome. What on today's call did you hear, if anything, that was new for you, or an angle that you had to consider? I'd be interested to know if you heard something like, oh, we hadn't really thought of it that way before, that you heard from one of my buddies. It could be nothing.
There's some interesting, questions regarding go-to-market and how, the resistance of clinics adopting this, when they have already ultrasound techs in place. That's something that we've thought about. And, we are starting, launching in kind of small specialty groups and physician groups for that reason. But it'll be really interesting challenge in terms of go-to-market. How do you go to a big system that already has a lot of ultrasound techs in place and tell them that, use this automated ultrasound, and you kind of don't need the techs as much, you will need them for other procedures, but so that's really interesting. It's a challenge that we think about, and our end goal is kind of, instead of trying to grow into those big hospital systems, is to go to home, which is the opposite direction. But and for that reason, but that's really an astute observation. And then there was a lot of interesting conversations about AI and a lot of adoption of AI and limitations, I think somebody mentioned, has been because of logistics of it, not because the algorithms are not great or they can't show that they can do in combination with radiologists, they can do better, but it's been limited because how do I integrate this with my PACS system, right? How do I, have real time? I think there was some conversation about that. How do I do real time? Because a lot of radiologists don't want to have to upload their images to some other platform and then look how, what the AI suggests. So those are some of the challenges of, machine learning integration with that. And we are thinking about it, but these are really good, some really good observations.
So what I'm keeping in mind for myself is you need to talk to Jan about packaging, Jose about connected wireless, Walt about sensors, and Sharon about human factors. And if I'm forgetting anyone, write me a note now or something. Is there anything, and me, I mean, if you want to talk about how to tell that story and not make people
Yeah,
feel
of course.
for their jobs, but, looking to adopt. Let me finish with this question. How would you answer, wow, Joe, this was great. You're so smart and handsome. It would be great if at the end of this call, I could just have these problems solved. I really wish right now I could make these go away. If I could, what, and what? What are the top three, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I got off the phone and these three major albatross issues are just gone. What would they be?
Yeah.
Start by Joe, oh my God, this was a great call. You're so smart, handsome. And then
Yes, it's a great call, Joy. You're great. You're handsome. Beyond that, I think some of the things regarding how to collect clinical data on a large scale, that would be very useful. So there were some comments that was mentioned here, like working with foundations and working with sisters, what was it called, sister study, things like that. So so our next steps is we're kind of getting through that phase of doing all our FDA tests and submitting that package. The next phase is collecting a lot of clinical data with our device. And of course, it's expensive, but there's a lot of logistical issues and things like that. So, so that's one thing, and then the other thing is, we have so far manufactured this at, we've made tens of them and we're ready to make hundreds. But the question is, how do you make, hundreds of thousands of millions of this for a consumer? So we have thought about, obviously, DFM and things like that. I know there was someone who was expert in DFM. So, but optimizing supply chain and manufacturing, those are some of the things that we're talking about next. And
do you have someone for that right now, or is Rick the next person we're putting you in touch with for design?
I would love to talk to Rick. We have ordered right now for this device. We've kind of done the DFM and we have ordered our molds and everything. But our next step would be the next thing I wanted to mention before I go to that is that usability, and how do we modify this device for at-home use. So there's some challenges around that as well. And yes, I would love to talk to Rick. As I said, DFM is one of them. Making this for point of care for clinics at smaller scales is one thing, but in order to make this device adapt for making, as I mentioned, hundreds of thousands or millions for consumer, it's a completely different ballgame, and I realize that. So those are some of the things. I'm sure there's more. There's obviously on the business side, adoption, and how do you sell to consumer, and then how do you there's issues on the connectivity side that wireless connectivity that are important. Right now our device connects with a USB to a tablet or laptop. We have wireless modules that we can integrate, but when you're doing that on a large scale, there's some challenges. So there are all these things that will come into play as we are trying to go to much larger scales. So there's multiple people. It was quite interesting to see there's quite a breadth of experience, and there's multiple people that we could talk to. And
I tell you this, even before this session, these Friday calls are the highlight of my week. Everyone you met are my friends. We meet for coffee every Friday and hang out. As you saw, it's very collegial, but I just love the idea of plopping a virtual stranger in the middle, hearing your story and having everyone, I mean, Rick will ask you a DFM question. I don't even know what he's talking about, but it's so relevant for you. And Andrea will ask you a question about your patent, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then you'll say something like, oh, strategically, I do not think that is right. And just this kind of idea of concentrated consulting, I think is a thing. Rick, what would your like, we're going to wrap up, but when some of the things she just said, if you guys got on a call and it was, you're just beginning to work together, what are the first 2 or 3 things that you would say or ask her to assess, where to take things? I'd be curious. This is like the DFM part of the call. What would you ask or say? How would you start?
This may seem a weird way to start a discussion like that, but I would ask you how you wanted to feel about the device when, how you wanted the patient to feel about it when they first got it in their hands, how you wanted to have them be able to install it. If you had some kind of an impression that you wanted them to get as soon as they got it, I want to make sure
user
design it
experience.
so they would get that feeling.
You're talking about user experience, yes?
Yeah. I'm talking about where
How
they
I feel as I'm being handed this, like, oh, this is on, how do I can't wait to put this on. I'm excited. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, sometimes.
Hold on one second.
No. Go ahead.
Go on. She can
They'll
watch the
have-
recording. What's the next thing you would say?
Sometimes when you get handed an assembly of something and it's a medical thing or it's anything, consumer, you just hand it. You feel like you've just been handed a squid and you can't tell where anything is, and it's really not obvious, and it's just kind of a mess. And some people are good at
squid analogy often.
Yeah, but sometimes you can get handed the same thing that's designed a little bit differently, and you can go, oh, well, this is obviously, these straps obviously do that, and it can either feel clear to you, and then we just work on how to make that so you could make 100,000 off a line and keep your scrap down and your cost down. So yeah.
Jan, you wrote a question here. If you want to come off mute and ask, because I don't know what those initials stand for.
Can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, had to get the mute off. My first question is, what are your Halt and Hess results, and how high can you go with your gel-filled things before they explode?
My first question would be, what does Halt and Hess mean?
It has to do with the shock and vibration of the equipment and what stresses you put on it for temperature, magnetics, everything else to make sure that you can actually ship it or have it work properly in somebody's house.
Perfect example of me not knowing what the fuck she just said, and I just love it. Really, really don't know what that means. And the fact that that is really important is why this thing works.
Yeah,
think of the gorilla in the suitcase when you think of Halt and Hess testing. The old Samsonite gorilla.
Oh, I remember. We're all of a certain age.
Extreme testing. Yeah.
That ad was designed by a packaging engineer, by the way.
I don't know who that was.
You were on mute, Maryam. Maryam, you're on mute.
Uh-oh.
Our guest of honor is on mute.
Oh, no.
Oh, here.
She has returned.
So we haven't done the shock testing, vibration testing yet, Jen. So I will let you know the results. In terms of the operating.
What you need to say is you will let her know how she can help you conduct them.
Yeah, I've had to have equipment redesigned just to make sure the shock and vibration didn't have problems, fans for cooling didn't fall off. So
yeah, stop working with whomever you were working with and have the lady who invented microwave popcorn do it for you.
Yeah, definitely. I will talk to you, Jan, after this for sure, because that's something that those tests are on our list. So we have past tests like electromagnetic safety testing and things like that, but we haven't done the shock and vibration and packaging testing yet. So we did some preliminary testing with few Gs, and seemed like the package and the device are surviving. So, but I'll talk to you afterwards, to see, because we added some things, and, we'll see. But I'll talk to you regarding that. In terms of the operating conditions, temperatures, our device is not as sensitive. We can operate anywhere from like, minus 15 to plus 60. So, and in terms of I wanted to show you guys this because I hadn't brought this out. So this is how the scanner looks like. So all the sensors, electronics inside here. This is a ceramic transducer, as you can see. This is the water hose, like going the opposite. So this is how you pour water in. This is In terms of the look and feel and all that is super important. And for now, we've designed this for clinics. But Rick, as you said, when you're going to consumer, then you have to go after slightly different look and feel, right? For this first one, we were going after a clean look, clinical, trustworthy, trustable. So our designers came up in terms of packaging and in terms of the ID, came up with some really cool ideas. And then when we looked at it and they said, well, this might be exciting for the consumer, but I don't know if a doctor, when they hold this in their hands, they're gonna say, is this a medical device? So that was kind of the first kind of level, because we're gonna be, our first step is, launching this in clinics and doing a lot of clinical studies with it, is this a clinical device that I can trust, and does it work like a clinical device, right? A medical device. But as we move towards consumer, then you have to consider a lot more things, right? So definitely those are usability and the design are some of the things that we'll be working on in the next phase. And yeah, we spent quite a bit of time. When we started, we said, how long can DFM possibly take? And it takes quite a bit of time. So we learned that definitely. And as we modify this for, for the next phase for consumer, those are the things that we'll start thinking about it earlier, to be honest, because you can't have DFM done as an afterthought, because then you have to go back and redesign a bunch of things, versus if you start with DFM in mind, then things become a little bit faster and easier. So things you learn as you go forward. So,
and don't forget, packaging is actually part of the medical device.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, of course. Things that we, and again, same issue. When we're shipping these into clinics and there's, somebody in the clinic using it, it's quite a different ball game than when you're shipping this to consumer. So the packaging requirements are quite different. So so we have to consider many more things. The unboxing experience and all those things are things that we have to become more important to some aspects, because in the clinic they might not care as much about unboxing, right? They're used to getting medical devices, shipped in, really ugly, packaging, and they don't care as long as it works, right? But that's not true with consumer. Consumer cares. That's part of the experience. So those are the things.
You've got the right set of people on the phone. I brought Shabir back because when you brought it out to show us the thing, you started talking about here's where the this goes and the that goes. Just quickly, Shabir, anything that was like, why this or why that, or oh, look at that? Any thoughts that just leapt to mind? You can say no.
No, well, I mean, obviously the device needs to not be, not be inhibitive to the patient. Obviously, what I saw was perhaps the engine with the main working part. I didn't see the bra or anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't bring the bra. So,
yeah, but just from that point of view, obviously it needs to be it needs to be where when the patient gets it, they're not scared by it.
Yeah. No, and as I mentioned, this first device is for clinic use. We do have to make modifications in terms of both the ID and other things to. So, for example, right now, you are, you put this on, you can put it on yourself, doesn't matter, or the nurse or medical assistant puts on you. You lie back and they pour water through this hole and they fill out the cup. When you're doing that yourself at home, you can't do that. So there are ways that we've thought about that. You can have a water reservoir that you fill up, you put in the device, you close it, and and then you can press start, and then you can inject the water. So there are ways that we are thinking about the next steps. But
have you thought about putting like gel packs in there instead of water?
Yeah, so gel packs we can do once we go to consumer. It's definitely possible. One of the reasons we are doing water right now is that first of all, water has a really good acoustic coupling and low acoustic loss. So that's the best reason. The other reason is that, with gel, we did try with gel. Gel traps bubbles, right? And with ultrasound, so ultrasound doesn't go through air, essentially. So whenever you have a bubble, you see black, right?
Right.
And you can't go through and you can't see anything that's underneath it, directly behind it. So that's the challenge, because then you would miss something. And when you're doing, one of the challenges with doing it automatically this way is that when you're doing it with hand, you can push out, like I'm sure if you've got an ultrasound, you see that the tech is pushing against the skin to to get rid of any bubbles that there are. That's one of the things they do. With the automated, when the image acquisition is done automatically without a human, then you don't have that that possibility. It's very difficult to do that. So that's why we opted for water. Water is also available everywhere. So one of the things I mentioned for us is expanding access globally. We didn't get to this kind of conversation, but there's over 1 billion women globally who don't have access to any breast cancer screening. So, and that's something that's super important to us in expanding access globally. And water is available everywhere, and it's environmentally it's better. So there's multiple benefits to water. We can use a gel pad, as Shabir mentioned. Instead of kind of squirting gel, you can use a gel pad that's formed to a specific breast size. In a clinic, that would be challenging because then you have to accommodate a lot of different sizes. But if you're sending this to one person and they're a specific breast size, then okay, you can have that and they can keep that gel pad. Those gel pads are not cheap. So, so that's definitely a possibility instead of water. So something we'll consider for next phase. But for the clinical phase, it's something that we tried, and it's very difficult to go with gel. So water had its own challenges. We had to make sure design a wearable that creates a good seal against body, and that's where we did a lot of kind of playing around with a lot of body forms and shapes and arcs and things like that. We spent quite a bit of time to design that wearable that can fit different body sizes, and it can also accommodate height adjustment, the diameter. So we spent quite a bit of time, with that as well. So that had its own challenges, but now we have a good wearable that works, and creates a good seal with a wide range of body parts and shapes and things
It
like that.
occurs to me that you'll be well served for any future conversation that you're meeting with someone for the first time. They're trying to get a sense of where you're going, what you're thinking, and the like. Have them watch this first, because you've covered so many aspects of the business at once that if somebody just wants to talk to you about this, they wouldn't even So this is just such a great kind of get up to speed with what's going on in your life. I made a little exception for my friend Elizabeth. She's not an MDG Premium person yet. But she had a really good point that we didn't raise, and I think she'll be our final point because we typically cut it off at 90 minutes at the far end. Elizabeth.
Thanks, Joe, for bringing me on. So I heard lots of discussion about a great product, and also your policy strategies in terms of FDA and your funding mechanism, but I wondered who your payer will be for this. Have you got a reimbursement strategy going on either through CMS or through insurance panels, so that is it going to be the consumer themselves that pay for this, or are you thinking that you'll have payment through some other mechanism?
Our thinking is that that's a really good question, as one of the things that we're working on right now. So we believe that the current ultrasound code in the first indication in the clinic, the first ultrasound codes apply to us, the 77641, that is full whole breast ultrasound. So because it will be used in the same manner as an ultrasound probe or automated breast ultrasound would be. So they consolidated, I think it was 2 or 3 years back. There was a lot of ultrasound codes that, where and then they consolidated into 2, like a whole breast and a partial, essentially, breast ultrasound. So we think we can use that in the clinical setting at the first step. As we move forward towards consumer, that's a really good question. So the ultrasound reimbursement code has 2 components. And one of the components is the technical and one is the professional, right? The part that goes to a radiologist, we think we still can use that as we move forward. The part that is with image acquisition technical, we don't think that as it is right now, you can get reimbursed for doing this ultrasound at home. That's something that we have to work with CMS and payers to see if we can capture that because we are essentially doing that part. So that's a portion that we have to work for, and potentially consumer can pay out of pocket initially. There are a lot of more codes coming, becoming available. So we're hopeful. There are codes now for AI and medical imaging. So those codes definitely something that we can take advantage of. But the technical portion, as is right now, it specifically says in a clinic. So I don't think, for home use, we have to go work with CMS, and, we essentially have to work with the societies and, try to see if we can take advantage of that.
Nick Anderson, also not on call, is your guy for reimbursement.
Yeah, reimbursement.
Reimbursement
is something that we have to work on.
Pardon me. Elizabeth, do you have expertise in health economics?
I am an investor as well. And so in the long run, you want to figure out how's your company going to make money on this? And so I think Nick, I've spoken to beforehand, would be a great resource in terms of reimbursement strategies.
Yeah, so we are actually fundraising right now. So if you
write her a check.
So we're raising a large Series A, and we're just starting the conversations. But very good question.
Well, Elizabeth would be a great resource for you to kind of pitch and just to kind of get a sense of, and you've probably done this already, so I don't know, frankly, how incremental it would be, but just hearing another perspective from somebody.
I would love that, Elizabeth. Definitely will connect. But I want to very quickly answer. So we have a SaaS business model, Elizabeth. We don't sell the hardware. We sell to clinics. So we have a monthly or annual subscription model. And as we move forward to consumer, we also have a purely SaaS model. So that's something that's very different from other medical device companies. We're not interested in selling this. We want to interest in SaaS, and we also have a disposable component. So the wearable straps and the bra part you saw, that's disposable. So that's the disposable component. And right now we're talking about $5 to $6 per patient disposable, $5.99. And in terms of the monthly subscription, we're starting at $1,000 a month for a clinic, and then we have different tiers, up to a certain amount of patients, and then if you have a lot larger patient volume, with typical clinics that have about the patient volumes that are around 100, 120 per month. So that's quite, that's something that's. And the reimbursement right now is about $109 for CMS, and it's $300 national average for ultrasound. So then there's, as I said, there's a technical portion, there's a professional portion, but it still is a very, there's very good margin for the clinics, to use this device. So.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Maryam, I'm going to conclude with asking you, what are you doing the next 3 Fridays? Because the next 3 weeks all seem relevant for you. Next week, Daniel Shepherd.
It's actually a really good time. I love it. I have my morning coffee, as you saw, and my morning espresso, and it's really enjoyable conversation. So I would love to join. Definitely let me know.
Well, you already probably got an invitation today about today's call, and you'll likely get one every week. Come to the ones that are most relevant. But next week, Daniel's going to talk about getting a strategic buyer's attention. The following week, Craig is going to talk about ROI and value assessments. And the week after that, Ian is a friend of mine, and he's coming in to give us a view on distributing medical devices in the U.S. And he's like, I think
that's really important. It's a challenge by itself. Yeah.
So become a member, hang out with us every week, and this was lovely. I'm confident that you got value out of it. I know I did, and I know that it made for a really, really interesting conversation. So
yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed meeting everyone and discussing our idea, and I look forward to connecting quite a few.
Welcome to the family.
Thank you so much.
Have a great weekend, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.